Does that mean that whether we're in or out of Europe, you want nothing to do with the single market because you think it has a negative effect?
How do you define the single market?
Do you accept that if we leave the EU, we must leave the single market?
I think look, the single market, people will say, what do you mean by the single market?
Fine. Yeah. So does that mean, this is really a yes-no question, does that mean you think we should not be a member of the single market, whether in or out of Europe?
What do you mean by the single market?
One of the interesting features. Let me make it simple for you.
Leaving the European market or not?
Let me make it simple for you. One of the interesting features of the last 30 or 40 years is actually.
Does that mean you think we should not be part of the single market?
So, as I said before, we're saying even if you take the Commission's most optimistic prediction of what the benefits are.
You used to be in favour of the single market. I've got all the quotes there. You used to be in favour of it, and now you're saying we should get out of it.
No, I think you're equivocating on the term single market. You are. The single market, what I mean by the single market.
It's a yes-no question. Do you think we should be a member part of the single market or not?
The single market is defined by the European Union as including membership of the Euro and membership of Schengen.
Just tell me, are we going to be in it or not in it? And if we're not going to be in it, are we going to negotiate a similar kind of deal?
We're going to have our own British arrangements, which will give us access to the rest of the European Union, to the European Union
without paying any money and without free movement.
Well, again, get back.
Do you think that Britain should come out of the single market?
I certainly think that Britain has the most amazing future ahead of us if we leave. You know, we're not a tiny country. We're the world's 5th biggest economy. You know, we have the best contract law in the world. We're part of a commonwealth of 2.5 billion consumers.
It's a very simple question which you're persistently refusing to answer.
Do you think there's a confusion on what the single market is?
Look, we are currently a member of it. Norway is currently a member of it. Other EU members are members of it, whether or not they use the euro. It's a very simple question. Do you think we should be a member of part of the single market or not? Yes or no?
The single market is a political project from Jacques Delors, and it encompasses both.
Can you answer the question, yes or no?
I'm answering the question. It encompasses economic and monetary union, and it encompasses the Schengen area.
Do you accept that whatever our relationship is with the EU, if we leave the EU, that we can have no full access to the single market unless we agree to free movement of peoples?
It depends what you mean by full access to the single market.
When I'm asking about the single market, I mean the ability to trade freely in goods and financial services within Europe, which we, the United Kingdom, currently do, despite the fact we're not members of the euro, nor are we signatories to Schengen. Do you think that this arrangement for the UK costs us for at least $4.5 billion and maybe more per year? Do you think we should continue to be part of that arrangement? Yes or no?
Quote, even the strongest advocates of EMU would be hard put to argue that it would do better than the ERM, unquote. That's from Andrew Tyree, the chairman.
So, with respect, I wasn't asking about what Andrew said 25 years ago.
Should we come out the single market?
I think that is almost certainly would be the case, yes.
So we would operate on WTO rules?
No, I'm not saying how we'd operate. All I'm saying is the UK will have a UK solution that will be something that's discussed once we get to the other side of June the 23rd.
I don't know. Because I can't get a clear answer from anyone on the Brexit camp what they think will happen on the 24th of June. Do they think we should be like Canada? Do they think we should be like Norway? Do they think we should be like Iceland? Do we should be like Albania, apparently? Switzerland? By the way, all the ones that are most often cited, Norway, Iceland, Switzerland, have higher net immigration per head than we do. So it's a nonsense, this idea that you sort of say no to the European Union and suddenly immigration floats away like the morning mist. Suddenly all those problems disappear. They can't agree amongst themselves. And
the truth is that the day after Britain voted to leave the European Union, we would not fall off the edge of the world or find the English Channel replaced by a sulphurous ocean of burning pitch. Quite the opposite. We'd be starting a process, a happy journey to a better future. But crucially, it's a journey where we would be in control, a journey whose pace and direction we would determine for ourselves, and whose destination we would choose.
We'll have our own deal, tailored to suit our own conditions and needs. The only point about Norway, Switzerland, Guernsey and all the rest of them is that they have tariff-free access to the EU. So the one thing that they all have in common is that they are part of a free trade area, and that's the one thing I think we can take for granted. What we do beyond that, how far in, what bits we choose to keep, well, that would be for a democratic government to negotiate.
Would the UK still be obliged to follow EU rules on free movement of people? In your view, if we're out, would free movement apply?
Well, that depends what our final end solution is.
The fundamental heart of the argument over the European Union is, are we going to be a normal self-governing democracy or are we not? And if you are a normal self-governing democracy, by definition, the public make choices in elections and vote in or out people like you with your priorities, and the chips fall where they may. So, of course, one can't say this is what the future will be exactly, this is how things will work out. That's not the point of it. The point of it is not for us to say, here's our blueprint of what Britain should be like in any detailed way.
One of the big problems for Leave is, what does it look like? That's the question that keeps being repeatedly posed, because you can paint a picture, but you don't have a document. Rightly or wrong, you don't have a document to actually answer some of the questions.
We can't negotiate with the EU before the referendum.
Well, no, but hang on.
It's an Aunt Sally, isn't it?
Right, but let me finish the question.
Provide an alternative.
Well, we have.
Right, but you haven't in quite the same terms, and I'm not saying that that's a criticism, but there wasn't a document to put through, because so you are, in certain terms, arguing for something that may happen, but you don't know for sure.
We said throughout that we would stand by some critical areas, that those areas that are being funded in structural regional funds would be funded. We'd have more money to spend on the NHS because we wouldn't be losing half of that sum of money, and we'd stand by commitments that have been made to things like agriculture. The rest were all just a series of possibilities of what you then could do beyond those main commitments, and that was the commitment made at the time.
How much do you think will go to the NHS?
It's not for vote Leave to decide what future governments do or don't do. What's important is that we take back control and we allow the governments that we elect to decide what regulations to keep, what ones to remove and what ones to strengthen.
But what the Leave campaign, and what I think people didn't quite grasp in the referendum, was it wasn't a general election. They weren't electing a new programme. What they were electing to do was to give future governments greater choice over the actions they could pursue if they wanted.
Do you have a clear understanding of what sorts of arrangements those who've spent so much time campaigning for Leave would be asking for? Clearly, Parliament would have a voice. There are 150 or so members that have a view.
Well, absolutely no idea is the short answer to that question as well. We've had the same people propose the Canadian model, the American model, the Albanian model, the Norwegian model, the Swiss model. They're all different. They all involve different costs and obligations. Some of them involve free movement of people, some of them involve contributions to the EU budget, both of which campaigners say they don't want to make. And just getting some kind of agreement amongst people about what the alternative model would be, I suspect would be very difficult.
And when the Leave campaigner asked what would the trading relationship be, they usually say they don't know, or worse, they don't care. They sometimes say it would be like Norway.
You've just heard there somebody in Norway using remarkable parallels, bearing in mind that their campaign, their last referendum campaign was such a long time ago, that actually if you take what's happened to Norway, Britain will be fine outside the EU. They will make those trade deals. We won't have economic doom and disaster. And actually Norway's doing pretty well when I last looked.
Would the UK still be forced to pay an EU subscription fee like Switzerland and a bit more in Norway?
Well, again, it depends what the end solution is.
Kate Hoey, on that, I mean, isn't that the scenario that could face your campaign if Britain does vote to leave the EU, that over the next few years there is a trade deal negotiated, Britain does stay part of the single market, and with that comes freedom of movement of people, because that's exactly what happened to Norway.
But so it would be ironic, actually, if we left the EU, negotiated our way back into full access for the single market, and then wouldn't be able to exercise these welfare restrictions that I've just negotiated.
Because what we are voting for is not one particular model, but the freedom to decide what we want to do.